Gaza, where Palestinians can be massacred with impunity, as we've seen all too many times, where the residents, the Palestinians in Gaza, again, who aren't Israeli citizens, who are still controlled by and subjected to measures by Israel's army, live in what cannot at all be described as normal conditions. I don't know how many people here use Twitter, but if you do, and you'd like a laugh, although it's a bit of a bitter laugh, follow the IDF spokesperson on Twitter, because it's consistently hilarious, although unintentionally. The IDF spokesperson will regularly tweet the amount of goods that the Israeli occupation has kindly allowed into Gaza. Okay, so this week we allowed in X thousand tons of produce into Gaza. If you ask the IDF spokesperson, as I have done, how many exports were allowed out of Gaza, you might not get a reply. And that's because the answer is practically zero. Okay, so for a population of 1.7 million people, the exports that Israel allows out of the Gaza Strip to its natural market, which historically has been Israel and of course the West Bank, the exports are almost none. Okay, now what's the security, so-called security rationale, for not allowing a furniture maker in Rafah to send his chair to Ramallah? Okay, it could even replace the nice big blue chair that Abbas had put there. So what's the security justification for that? There's none. The policy when it comes to Gaza is collective punishment, quite clearly. I mean, many Israeli leaders, military officials have been explicit on that front. The policy is to collectively punish 1.7 million people from a political point of view. So if you think about it, I've just touched upon some examples of how Palestinians are subjected to discrimination and oppression in different areas. Maybe they're citizens of Israel in the pre-67 area, maybe they're residents in East Jerusalem, maybe they are in the West Bank under military rule, maybe they're in the Gaza Strip. There's of course another group of Palestinians who actually constitute about half of all the Palestinians, who I haven't mentioned yet, which are the Palestinian refugees. And they don't live, or some of them do, in the West Bank and Gaza, but those outside don't live directly under Israel's military rule or as citizens, as second-class citizens, because they were expelled in the kind of founding acts, as it were, of Israeli apartheid in 48 and also in the 67 too, in mass waves of mass ethnic cleansing that removed, in the pre-67 area, around 90% of all the Palestinians who would have been inside what then became Israel. Okay, so of course, from their point of view, Israeli apartheid actually means exclusion from their homeland. That's one angle, reason why some South Africans, when they have visited Palestine, Israel in contemporary times, have talked about it being worse than it was for them under South African apartheid, because of the way in which it means direct exclusion, removal from your homeland. Whereas in the case of South Africa, there was a different sort of relationship going on, more based on economic exploitation, although there were, of course, expulsions from particular locations to another. So that's an overview of what Israeli apartheid, of what Israeli policies have meant for Palestinians for over 60 years. I've pretty much literally no idea how long I've been talking for, so I'm going to move on to a section that's kind of towards the end of my remarks, before there's time for questions, which is a suggestion, or some suggestions, for what we can do about this here, or in the UK where I'm from. There are a lot of different things, a lot of different ways that people can respond to the Palestinian catastrophe, the ongoing Palestinian catastrophe. And one of those ways is through answering the call that came from Palestinian civil society for people around the world to embrace what is referred to as boycott, divestment and sanctions, oftenly referred to in kind of summary as BDS. Now what does that mean? Well, a way of thinking about it is thinking about it as a time-honored, non-violent strategy of civil society to resist a particular injustice. Boycott. I mean, most people have probably boycotted a particular company or a product at some point in their lives for one reason or another. Maybe you don't buy one clothes manufacturer's products because of how you know people are treated in the factories that make those clothes, for example. Maybe you don't buy chocolate from one manufacturer because of whatever policies that the company makes. In other words, the idea of boycott as a choice and as a way of responding to a particular injustice is not something that people find hard to grasp. In fact, it's been deployed by different groups throughout history as a means of trying to mobilize change when one group is, for different reasons,